Hey, it's Kimberly. Welcome back to my channel, The Infinite Spark Collective. I am the founder and creator, not only of this channel, but that's the name of my business too. Today, this is another video for the Sovereignty series, Beyond the Mainstream. If you're exhausted by the endless loop of mainstream self-help, spiritual hustle type, look at me, do this, and it will work kind of videos, and trying to manage your 3D life like a second job, you're in the right place. And this series is going to help you by dropping the immature spirituality, the conditioning, and stepping off that damn treadmill, and replacing it and reclaiming it with your unshakable power and sovereignty. And today we're going to talk about why I walked away from constantly doing affirmations and mainstream manifesting. So grab yourself a cup of coffee, cup of tea, some water, maybe a snack. And in the description, since this is mostly a YouTube video, I'll put descriptions in of any books I cover or anything that will be helpful to you. And let's just go from there. If you look at mainstream spirituality, if you look at what's out there right now, especially, manifesting coaches and, all of that. A lot of them are very adamant and they want you to believe that life is essentially like a game board, a chessboard, a game of technical control. Look, I have my own spiritual life coach that I work with, the Twin Flame Union coach, Liz Henderson. She's a manifesting coach. She's a spiritual coach. She's also a business coach. She's a pretty all-around coach in general, and I work with her. And I got caught up in the traditional manifesting sequences. And let's just say I woke up. I woke up to myself, and I'm going to get to that in a second. A lot of times when we're desperate, trying to manifest something or someone into our lives, that's really the key that we're operating from, the desperation, the fear of the lack. And they sell you this idea that if you just find the right technique or series of techniques and you stick to it, if you script and visualize on command, repeat affirmations, ignore your 3D reality, keep your vibration squeaky clean, and like ignore the thoughts that come up and ignore the emotions that come up because that's just your ego or that's just your habit, and they kind of, well, let's be honest, try to dissuade you from the mental loops that you're in. They just tell you that you can force the universe or another person or whatever to hand you what you want just by doing all these techniques. And they treat you like you have this rigid amount of things that if you do them and you do them all and you do them correctly, you'll get what you want. And I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of people that I know personally, a lot of people I see on social media in their comments, and they talk about how it doesn't work, and they talk about, what can you do to help me make it work, and what can you do that's different, because it isn't working. You end up under this intense pressure. And a lot of coaches just say, look, acknowledge the thought and then let it go and get on with your day. Say this affirmation to make that thought go away. And all that really does is keep you just in the loop. It keeps you in the I'm using words to push away what I'm feeling, when in all reality, you need to be acknowledging that you're in fear, that you're operating from manifesting out of fear. I covered this in the previous video. When you operate from, if I just get this, if I just have that person, then everything will be okay. And you operate on it from forcing yourself to do practices that make you feel bad. And you're being told to affirm away what you're feeling. That doesn't work. You have to sit with it. Look, I've been there. I've gone through it. And I've told my coach this, and she's been really, really helpful when I finally went to her and admitted, look, I know why it's not working. It's not working because I'm operating from fear, from lack, from desperation. And I think the majority of the mainstream manifesting community, the coaches, don't talk about this because they want you to buy in to what they're doing. And look, they're not wrong. Okay? They're not wrong, but what they're not doing is they're not talking to you about how to manifest from your peace, from your presence. Mainstream affirming, mainstream manifestation techniques are all like the conscious mind trying to push stuff out of your head and replace the thought. But when you're subconscious, of all your, probably say, primal years, primitive years, have you conditioned in fear and lack and desperation, and you don't acknowledge that? That's why this doesn't work. The mainstream courses aren't telling you you cannot affirm out of a dysregulated nervous system. You can stand in front of your mirror or sit in a chair on your bed, at your desk at work or whatever, and repeat, I am abundant, I am chosen, I am loved, I am whatever, 1,000 times over. But if your body is in fight, flight, or freeze mode, those words just bounce right out of you. Your conscious mind is saying one thing, but your body is physically braced for impact, even if you don't necessarily feel it. And this creates incredible internal conflict. I'm speaking from experience here, right? You're essentially gaslighting yourself and your own body, trying to force it to feel something it simply doesn't have the capacity to do. And I know how that feels because I've lived it. I've tried it all. I walked around repeating positive statements while there was a knot in my stomach, while my head was screaming the exact opposite, thinking that if I just said the words loud enough, or I just repeated them long enough, or often enough, or walked around delusional about my affirmations, affirming that it's already mine, that I could override my nervous system. I treated my own life like a project that I had to manage, believing that my worth and whether things worked out or not depended on how well I performed the rituals and stuck to the spiritual rules. And it got to a point where I was so exhausted, not only by my own mind, but my physical body was exhausted. And in the previous video, I covered the subtle layers of your aura. And eventually the conflict between my mental body and my emotional body and what was going on between them by doing all this work got into my physical body, and I ended up completely exhausted. Even sleep wasn't helping it because my mind was still going and repeating the loops. I was just living in a self-imposed prison, trying to think the perfect thoughts, trying to feel the perfect thoughts. And there's a lot of um, toxic positivity and creation of fear of your heavy emotions in the mainstream right now. And we develop a fear of our own natural human emotions. We're taught that sadness, grief, anger, and doubt are low vibe and dangerous. So instead of feeling those feelings, we slap a positive affirmation over them like a band-aid. But those suppressed emotions don't go anywhere. They just get louder in the background and they get pushed down and pushed down and pushed down. True sovereignty and true peace requires wholeness. You have to be willing to feel your way through the heavy stuff without making it mean that you've ruined anything. Feeling a negative emotion doesn't stop you from moving forward, doesn't stop you from manifesting. But what it does is suppressing it keeps it stuck and keeps you stuck. And this is why I've walked away from doing affirmations right now, or even doing anything related to manifesting. It doesn't mean I'm not ever going to go back to it. But I realize they aren't tools for freedom. They're just another form of all the mainstream stuff that's out there right now. They keep you trapped on a treadmill and in a box where you're constantly monitoring your thoughts. Like a guard dog terrified to let the burglar in, right? And that's what's ruined everything. Mainstream advice tells you to focus on the external prize, but all it does is keep you dependent on something outside of yourself. To prove that you're okay, to prove that you're capable, to prove that, yay, I got the thing, so good, my life is good. But instead of playing games with spiritual rules, I've been diving into Brian Ridgway's books and the courses that came with them, along with exploring the works of Michael Singer, Byron Katie, whose teachings are very similar to Brian's. He even said that in one of his videos, and I've actually linked in the previous video I made on our sovereignty series. I linked a playlist I have of all his videos, so go check them out. And I've been looking at Vadim Zeland's materials too, reality transurfing. It's not necessarily about manifestation, but it's about learning to strip away the mental illusions. And as I talked about in yesterday's video, it's looking at practical frameworks like the Human Mind Owner's Manual from Transformation Academy to understand how the mind actually operates through psychology, cognitive behavioral techniques, and rational emotive techniques rather than getting lost in the spiritual hustle trying to cover up all that's going on in your head with spiritual techniques. Yes, I am deeply spiritual. I'm very eclectically spiritual, but I'm not going to negate the psychology behind it. What I want to coach you on is how to meld and merge the two so that you create a balanced, peaceful, present human being. Because let's face it, we're still human, right? Our soul came here to experience what the human world does so that our soul can grow, our spirit can grow, our connection to source can grow. Wisdom, gaining wisdom. And I will say, I've gained a lot more wisdom about myself since I've stopped doing the mainstream manifesting. Now, Brian Ridgway has courses on manifestation, but it's not the mainstream stuff. It talks more about other ways to manifest, and it's about being present. It talks about conscious breathing. I'm not talking breath work per se, because a lot of people, especially like myself, find that that's really hard. And he talks about it more in a conscious way, um, type process. During my daily living, I'm not really doing any work at all. I just sit with my coffee or my tea and I rest in my own presence. And I spend time creating material for you, studying, reading, um, learning more about the process to help you move to where you need to be, where you want to be. Because I don't want to force reality to happen, because you can't do it. I want to be able to be open and present and allow it to come to me, with me not really having to do much of anything except get rid of the junk and the emotional crap of the fear, lack, and desperation in my life. Walking away from all of that is not giving up. And it doesn't mean you can't return to it. What it means for me and for you is right now you have to drop it. If you realize you are trying to manifest from fear, lack, and desperation, don't keep doing the stuff. Learn to deal with your programming, your conditioning first. Then you can learn to manifest from peace, from presence. And when I say drop the mainstream stuff, I mean drop the manifesting work the coaches keep throwing at you. Drop from doing the healing work, okay? You don't need shadow work. You already know what the conditioning is. You don't need to be led through, oh, it's this, it's that. Can we just label it for what it is? You know you're in fear. That fear can be labeled any way you want, and you know it comes from your conditioning. It doesn't have to be all these things. Don't get me wrong, Carl Jung and his shadow work is amazing stuff, but it's from a psychological perspective, not a spiritual perspective. And that is what I want you to consider. Looking at your fear and conditioning from the psychological aspect, and then finding the appropriate, spiritual tools that can help you release it, because that's what Brian Ridgway does. He's a deeply spiritual man, but it's not immature spirituality like you see out there. And immature spirituality is basically what you see in the mainstream. Do this meditation, you'll be fine. Do this, you'll be fine. Do that, you'll be fine. It completely negates all the psychology. It's like it's ignoring it. It's like it's compartmentalizing it, that all you have to do is this spiritual work and everything will be fine and everything will be healed. Many mainstream teachers, they talk about healing, and they talk about, but they say balance your chakras, do your shadow work. They don't talk about it from a psychological perspective. And that's what I'm here to do. You have to do both, but you have to do the spiritual healing in a different way. Yes, I am studying Reiki, or I'm going to be studying Reiki, um, and all of that type of work. but I'm going to back it up from a psychological perspective. The two go together. It's not one or the other. It's a balance of both. And that is what creates the presence and the peace, because your mind is clear, so your vessel can be clear. And instead of jumping through hoops, drop the performance, drop the doing. It means admitting that you're exhausted and doing everything and trying to manipulate what's out there, right? Instead of jumping through hoops to prove that you've mastered a technique and ended up with what you thought you wanted, the real shift happens when you stop running or stop pushing and you drop the scorecard and you realize that your peace and your sovereignty was never something that you had to earn through a formula. It's always been there. You're already whole. You don't need to repeat words 100 times. You don't need to play games with the universe to make yourself feel worthy of a beautiful life. If you want to dive deeper into dismantling these mental loops and stepping out of the mainstream self-help treadmill, I'm going to leave links in the description of this video to a few books that are, because I haven't finished reading that, are completely shifting my perspective. They're books by Brian Ridgway. He had originally wrote one called Break Your Self-Help Addiction. It's quite a long book. He has a newer version called Your New Beginning, where he condenses a lot of the information in the first book, but I'm still going to read the first book anyway to see kind of the background of it. Um, I'm also going to start reading The Untethered Soul and Living Untethered by Michael Singer, and books by Byron Katie, one that I mentioned in the previous video, a couple of them, and I'm going to put them in there as well. And I would suggest you start with those. And when you work through the materials, and this is a process, I'm not saying you have a week to do this. A lot of coaches will say when you come to them with the how do you help me with this, they'll say do this for a week and you'll be fine. The process of shifting yourself does not have a timeline, people. It's an ongoing thing. And this is where my coaching is different. I'm not just going to give you a timeline. Take as long as you need, return to it when you need to. You know, it's not like you're on a schedule, right? What I'm asking you to do, just as I'm doing for myself, devote your time every day to something. I'm not saying spend hours on it, but maybe read a chapter. And don't read more than one book at once. I've been there, done that, and that's really hard to do because you get a lot of your mind gets full. There ends up being a lot of conflict with the volume of information. So start with one book, right? In fact, I have um, when I bought Brian's first book, Break Your Self-Help Addiction, it came with an audiobook version, and I actually have kept track of where I am in listening to the book because I listen and I read the words at the same time. I'm a kinesthetic learner. It helps me absorb the information better. Um, that might work for you. I'm just not the kind of person who can just sit in silence and read. I haven't been like that in years, and that's partly because ADHD and just because I'm a kinesthetic learner. I need sort of more than one thing going on at the same time to learn. I need to be able to touch, to do, to read, to hear, to see. I need all of that. I can't just, like, you could hand me a book, like I have my book over here, Okay. Now, it doesn't have an audiobook version. So what do? I put music on. Not music with words. I put on like ambient music, or I'll put on like something like that. Now, I have said in the past a lot of the YouTube videos mess with the algorithms when it comes to meditation and such like that. Um, and that's true, although I haven't noticed it so much like with the channels like Green Red Productions and stuff with the ADHD type music. I notice it doesn't really mess with those. I find that I really can focus. But for me, I've got a bunch of other frequencies that I can listen to um, while I'm reading. And I'm probably going to use those. They're the golden ratio ones created by Banah Win, Banah is his first name, last name Winn. He has a community on School called Harmony. Um, he has an Instagram channel. I don't want to create a huge long list of resources and stuff for you. So feel free to, you know, go search out the golden ratio frequencies. Um, I may put them in to the links in the bottom just because it'll be helpful for you. Um, but I'm going to tell you, I think honestly, um, you know, a lot of these books will be very helpful for you. If you're really done trying to figure this all out by yourself, my coaching and community hub on With Me is going to officially launch in a few weeks, roughly maybe month, 2 months from now, tops. I'll do a video announcement and information on my Facebook and YouTube page, Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. We'll go through the framework that I'm creating, and so make sure you're subscribed and tune in. I'll see you in the next video.